The unseen burden, the weight of the earth. The sun dipped low over the craggy hills, streaking the sky with hues of crimson and amber. Dust lingered in the air, disturbed by the relentless grind of heavy machinery. The excavation site hummed with life. Engines roared, metal clanked, and voices shouted orders over the noise. Among the workers was Logan Carter, a seasoned excavator operator with 2 decades of sweat and toil in the construction and mining industry. His hands were calloused from years of gripping levers, his back ached from long shifts, and his heart carried an exhaustion that sleep never seemed to fix. Logan wasn't just another worker. He had a way with the land, an instinct. Some called it a sixth sense. Others dismissed it as experience. But Logan knew when the earth was ready to give, and when it was hiding something beneath. That morning, as he climbed into the cabin of his excavator, he felt it. A strange, pressing weight on his chest. Something was off. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was something deeper, something lurking beneath the layers of rock, waiting to be found. "Hey, Logan. You good, man?" The voice snapped him out of his thoughts. It was Eddie Morales, his best friend and coworker. Eddie was the kind of guy who always had a joke on his lips, but right now, concern flickered in his brown eyes. Logan forced a smile, gripping the excavator controls. "Yeah, just another day, right?" Eddie chuckled, patting the side of the machine. "Another day of breaking our backs so some corporate suit can get richer." Logan didn't respond. He just stared at the rocky terrain ahead. There was something about this patch of land, something stubborn. It felt like the earth itself was resisting them. As the excavator's hydraulic arm swung forward, its bucket teeth scraped against the rocky surface, biting into the stubborn ground. The machine growled as Logan pushed forward, but the soil was denser than usual. Rock shattered under the force, but something beneath it refused to break. Hours passed. The sun climbed high, then began its descent. Logan's hands ached from gripping the controls. Sweat beaded on his brow. And then, a sudden impact. A jolt ran up Logan's arms as the excavator struck something solid, something harder than the surrounding rock. The machine shuddered violently. Logan pulled back, frowning. He had hit dense rock before, but this felt different. "Eddie," he called into the radio. "I got something solid here. Might need to blast it." A pause, then static. Eddie's voice crackled through. "I'm on my way." A few minutes later, Eddie jogged over, wiping sweat from his forehead. "All right, what do we got?" Logan swung the bucket back, revealing a jagged crack in the stone. He repositioned and struck again, harder this time. Crack cake. The sound that followed wasn't normal. It wasn't the dull thud of rock giving way. It was hollow, like the earth was gasping. Eddie frowned. That didn't sound right. Man. Logan's stomach twisted. He repositioned the excavator and brought the bucket down again. Boom. This time, the rock split open, not in the natural way stone fractures, but clean, like a door being unsealed. The dust settled. And then, something inside shimmered, a glint of something metallic. The workers, drawn by the commotion, began to gather. "What the hell is that?" Eddie murmured. Logan climbed out of the excavator, his boots crunching over the loose rock. Heart pounding, he knelt by the opening, brushing away dirt and debris. Inside the hollowed-out chamber, nestled within the rock like a buried secret, was a wooden box. It was old, impossibly old. Carved with intricate symbols, preserved as if time had forgotten it. The breath hitched in Logan's throat. His fingers hovered over the carvings. The symbols weren't random. They had a pattern, a rhythm. They told a story. Carlos, one of the younger workers, muttered, "That doesn't look like something nature made." Eddie swallowed. "Maybe we should call someone. Like, I don't know. An archaeologist, a historian, a freaking priest." Logan wasn't listening. He reached forward, his fingers grazing the surface. The wood felt cool despite the scorching heat of the day. He hesitated. His gut told him that this was important, that this was something he was meant to find. Slowly, he lifted the lid. A hush fell over the worksite. Inside the box lay 3 objects. A brittle parchment, covered in symbols that didn't belong to any known language. A rusted key, its teeth worn but still sturdy. A metallic medallion, engraved with spiraling patterns, shimmering with an unnatural glow. Logan's breath came in short, sharp gasps. The medallion was the first thing he reached for. The metal was cold, unnaturally so. Symbols ran along its edge, spiraling inward like a whispering secret. Logan. Eddie's voice was barely above a whisper. That doesn't belong here. Logan ignored him, turning his attention to the parchment. The symbols on it seemed to shift under the light. They weren't just markings, they were instructions, or a warning. Then the wind shifted. A sudden chill swept through the valley. A silence too deep settled over them. The ground beneath them felt lighter. Logan's instincts screamed at him. They had unearthed something, and some things were meant to stay buried. The stone's secret, the weight of the unknown. Logan Carter stood frozen, staring at the wooden box lying open in front of him. The symbols carved into it whispered of something ancient, something forgotten. His fingers trembled as he touched the metallic medallion, its surface unnaturally cold despite the sun beating down on them. The air around him felt charged, alive, as if the very earth had been holding its breath for centuries, waiting for this moment. Behind him, the gathered workers stood in stunned silence. Even the ever-chatty Eddie Morales didn't crack a joke. This was not normal. They had unearthed old relics before, rusted tools, broken fossils, even weapons from forgotten wars, but never something like this. Carlos, one of the younger workers, cleared his throat. "Oh, what the hell do we do now?" His voice was tight, uneasy. Eddie shot Logan a look. "I say we put that thing back in the hole and pretend we never saw it." Logan ignored them, his eyes locked on the parchment inside the box. Its brittle surface was covered in writing. Strange, swirling characters that looked too perfect, too intricate to have been written by human hands. The rusted key, lying beside the parchment, seemed out of place. It wasn't ancient. It was old, sure, but it looked more like something from the last century rather than thousands of years ago. And yet, it had been sealed inside solid rock. Eddie stepped closer. "Logan, seriously, we should call someone. Some historian. Or hell, I don't know. The military." That word sent a chill down Logan's spine. The government. If they got involved, this thing would disappear into some secret warehouse, buried under classified documents, never to be seen again. Something deep in his gut told him this was meant to be found. "We're not calling anyone," Logan said finally, his voice steady. Eddie's eyes widened. "Oh, so we're just gonna sit here and play Indiana Jones." Logan picked up the parchment, studying the symbols. Something doesn't add up. This place isn't near any historical sites, and this box wasn't just buried, it was sealed in rock. That means it's been here longer than we can even date. Eddie threw up his hands. "Exactly, which means we don't mess with it." But Logan's curiosity had already taken hold. Before he could say another word, a deep rumble echoed beneath them. The earth shook. A small shockwave rippled through the ground, making the dirt tremble. The machinery around them groaned as if the very land was waking up. Carlos stumbled back. "Nope. Nope. 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 I'm out." The other workers murmured anxiously, some already backing away. Logan's stomach twisted. What the hell had they just unleashed? Then, before anyone could react, the air was split by a sharp mechanical screech. The sound of tires against gravel. Logan's eyes snapped toward the main road leading to the worksite. 3 black SUVs sped toward them, kicking up clouds of dust. They moved in perfect formation, sleek, heavy, armored. No logos, no plates. Government. Logan's heart dropped. The arrival of the unseen. The SUVs skidded to a stop, their doors flying open in unison. Men in black suits and sunglasses stepped out, moving with purposeful precision. They weren't military, not exactly, but Logan had seen enough in his years to know they weren't ordinary. Their leader was a tall, sharp-eyed man with silver-streaked hair and a face that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. He moved with the calm authority of someone who was used to being obeyed. The foreman, Jack Monroe, stormed forward, his face red with anger. "Hey, what the hell is this? This is a private operation." The silver-haired agent pulled out a badge. There was no agency name on it, just a symbol, a simple, circular insignia etched in black. "This site is now under federal jurisdiction," he said flatly. His voice carried the weight of a command. Jack bristled. "Like hell it is. You can't just step away from the artifact." The agent interrupted, his tone deadly serious. The workers murmured uneasily. Eddie exhaled sharply. Oh, this just got real. Logan clenched his fists. They hadn't even inspected the box yet, and these guys were already here. That meant they knew. They knew something was buried here, and they had been waiting for someone to find it. One of the agents stepped toward Logan, his expression unreadable. "Hand it over." Logan hesitated. The agent took another step. Now, something in Logan's gut screamed at him. He had seen men like this before, men who didn't ask twice. Eddie whispered under his breath, "Logan, don't." But Logan was already moving. Instead of handing over everything, he subtly slid the rusted key into his pocket. Then he lifted the medallion and parchment, holding them out. The silver-haired agent took them without hesitation. The second his fingers closed around the medallion, the air shifted. A low, unnatural hum vibrated through the ground. A sound that wasn't wind. A sound that wasn't human. The workers gasped. Carlos took a step back. "Tell me y'all heard that." For the first time, the agent's expression flickered, not anger, not annoyance. Fear. He turned sharply. "Get it loaded. Now." Two agents rushed forward, securing the box in a lead-lined case. Logan's pulse pounded. Whatever they had just uncovered, the government didn't want it to be seen. As the agents moved toward their SUVs, Logan stepped forward. "Wait." The silver-haired agent turned. Logan narrowed his eyes. "What the hell is this?" The agent's gaze was unreadable, something that was never meant to be found. He turned to leave. But then, as if remembering something, he glanced back at Logan. His next words sent a chill through Logan's spine. "If I were you, Mr. Carter," he said quietly, coldly, "I'd forget this ever happened." Then, without another word, he got into his SUV. The vehicles roared to life, speeding away, leaving behind nothing but a cloud of dust. The hidden key. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Eddie, voice tight, muttered, "We're not gonna forget this, are we?" Logan exhaled slowly, his fingers tightening around the small object in his pocket. The key. No, they weren't going to forget. Because Logan had just realized something. The agents took the medallion. They took the parchment. They took the box. But they never noticed the key. And something told Logan. It unlocked something much, much bigger. The key to the past. The burden of a secret. The dust had barely settled from the black SUV's departure, but the silence that followed was unnatural. The usual hum of the excavation site, the growl of diesel engines, the clatter of shifting rock, the distant murmur of men working, was gone. It was as if the land itself was holding its breath. Logan Carter stood still, his fingers gripping the rusted key in his pocket. His pulse was hammering, but his face remained calm. The government agents had taken the medallion, the parchment, and the wooden box, but they didn't notice the key. And that meant they didn't have everything. Eddie Morales stood beside him, arms crossed, his face pale. He was the first to break the silence. "Logan," He didn't even try to hide the tension in his voice. "You realize what just happened, right?" Logan exhaled slowly. "Yeah." Eddie shot him a sharp look. "No, I don't think you do." He pointed toward the empty dirt patch where the box had been just minutes ago. That wasn't some random discovery. They knew, man. They knew something was buried here, and they were waiting for someone stupid enough to dig it up. Logan frowned. Then why didn't they take it themselves? Eddie hesitated, then muttered, "Maybe they couldn't." The thought sent a shiver down Logan's spine. The excavation team, still shaken from what they had witnessed, began dispersing. Some whispered to each other in hushed voices. Others left entirely, heading back to their trucks and abandoning the site. Carlos, still jittery, walked up to Logan and Eddie. "I don't know about y'all, but I'm not sticking around. This job ain't worth it." "Smart man," Eddie muttered. Carlos hesitated, glancing at Logan. "You gonna tell someone about this?" Logan clenched his jaw. "Not yet." Carlos sighed, then walked away. Within minutes, the site was nearly deserted. The workday was supposed to continue, but nobody wanted to stay. Something about the way the ground had trembled, the way the air had shifted, had unsettled everyone. Even the foreman, Jack Monroe, a man who normally cared more about deadlines than safety, seemed rattled. He gave Logan a hard look. "Go home, Carter. Don't do anything stupid." Logan didn't respond, because stupid was exactly what he was about to do. The first clue. Later that night, Logan sat in his pickup truck, parked outside his small house on the outskirts of town. The sky was clouded, heavy with the kind of stillness that came before a storm. He held the key in his hand, rolling it between his fingers. It was old, but not ancient. Not like the medallion or the parchment. It looked like something from the early 1900s, a skeleton key, heavy with time. But what the hell did it unlock? His first instinct was to go back to the excavation site, to search for some hidden door or buried structure. But if the agents were watching him, and he had no doubt that they were, returning now would be suicide. So instead, he went to the one place where forgotten things were kept. The hidden history. The Hillcrest County Archives was an old building nestled near the town library. It was one of those places nobody ever visited unless they were desperate for old land records, property disputes, or genealogy charts. And that made it the perfect place to hide something important. Logan pushed open the heavy wooden doors and stepped inside. The scent of dust and aging paper filled the air. Rows of old filing cabinets stood like silent sentinels of forgotten knowledge. The room was dimly lit, the flickering overhead lights barely holding back the gloom. At the front desk, Miss Caldwell, the town's elderly librarian and self-proclaimed keeper of history, looked up from her desk. Her sharp eyes studied him from behind her thick-rimmed glasses. "Well, this is a surprise," she said, voice dry. "Didn't take you for a historian, Carter." Logan forced a smile. "Just looking for some old records." Miss Caldwell raised a skeptical eyebrow. "What kind of records?" He hesitated. If he told her the truth, she might ask too many questions. So he settled for half of it. "Something about old mining operations." Her expression softened slightly. "Ah, well, most of those are in the basement archives." She gestured toward a door marked RS2REKTEDXES. "You know the drill. Nothing leaves the room." Logan nodded. "Understood." Miss Caldwell led him down a narrow staircase into the archives. The basement was cold, the air thick with the scent of age. Shelves lined the walls, crammed with century-old ledgers, maps, and forgotten documents. She pulled open a heavy file drawer labeled 1890 to 1920 and handed him a leather-bound ledger. "Mining records from when the first companies came through," she said, "might have what you're looking for." Logan carried the book to a nearby wooden table, dust rising from its surface as he set it down. He flipped through the yellowed pages, scanning old reports of land purchases, failed operations, and abandoned shafts. Then he found something, a record dated 1903. The forgotten mine. The report was vague, but it detailed an abandoned mining site, one that had been sealed shut and erased from official maps. The reason? Unexplained occurrences. Logan's fingers tightened on the page. There were no follow-up records, no attempts to reopen the site. It was as if someone had wanted it to be forgotten. And the most important part, the coordinates. His breath hitched. The abandoned mine wasn't just near the excavation site. It was directly beneath it. A slow, uneasy realization crept over him. The key he had taken, the one the agents had missed, didn't belong to the wooden box. It belonged to something buried deeper, something that had been locked away for a reason. The descent. By the time Logan left the archives, the night sky was pitch black, the wind carrying the first whispers of an oncoming storm. He climbed into his truck, his mind racing. He should have left it alone. He should have handed over the key, walked away from the mystery. But he couldn't, because now he had something the agents didn't. Away inside, Logan pulled out his phone and dialed. Eddie picked up after the third ring. "Dude, it's past midnight. Whatever you're about to say." "No." Logan ignored him. "I know what the key unlocks." A long silence. Then Eddie groaned. "Son of a bitch." Logan smirked. "Meet me at the excavation site." The line went dead. Logan set his phone down and gripped the steering wheel. Somewhere deep beneath the earth, a door had been locked for over 100 years. And tonight, he was going to open it. Beneath the earth, the call of the underground. The storm had arrived. Dark clouds rolled across the sky, swallowing the moon. Thunder rumbled in the distance, shaking the ground like an ominous warning. The wind howled through the trees, carrying a chill that seeped into Logan Carter's bones. He tightened his grip on the rusted key in his pocket. Tonight, he was going underground. The abandoned mine, the one erased from maps, the one the government never mentioned, lay beneath the excavation site, and he had the only key. As Logan pulled into the deserted site, his truck's headlights cut through the darkness, revealing Eddie Morrell standing near the edge of the dig site, arms crossed, his expression a mix of frustration and fear. Eddie had been Logan's best friend for years, but tonight he looked like a man who had seriously reconsidered their friendship. "You know," Eddie said as Logan stepped out of the truck, "I had a really bad feeling when you called me." Logan smirked. "And yet you're here." Eddie shook his head. "That's because I'm stupid." Logan pulled out the old mining records he had copied from the archives, unfolding the map that showed the location of the sealed mine entrance. He turned his flashlight on it, pointing to a spot just 50 yards from where they stood. "This is it," Logan said, nodding toward the area covered in dirt and rubble. "The mine's entrance." Eddie exhaled sharply. "So just to be clear, you want us to dig open a mine that was sealed over 100 years ago? At night, during a storm, after some men in black tights just showed up and took all the weird crap we found?" Logan glanced at him. "That about sums it up." Eddie pinched the bridge of his nose. "We are so going to die. Uncovering the past." The digging took time. They worked under the glow of flashlights, shoveling away layers of dirt and loose rock. The rain started falling, not heavy, but enough to make their work harder. The wind howled around them, rattling the steel beams of abandoned equipment. Then, a hollow clang. Logan stopped, catching his breath. He dropped his shovel and reached down, brushing away the remaining dirt. Beneath it, half buried in the ground, was a rusted metal hatch. It was massive, at least 6 feet across, reinforced with thick iron bars. A heavy padlock secured it shut, and at the center of that lock, a keyhole. Logan and Eddie exchanged a glance. Eddie exhaled. "If that key actually works, I'm gonna scream." Logan pulled the rusted key from his pocket. His fingers trembled slightly as he lined it up with the lock. He slid it in. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a deep metallic click. Eddie took a step back. "Oh, hell no." Logan took a deep breath and turned the key. With a heavy groan, the hatch unlocked, the rusted mechanisms grinding as if they hadn't moved in a century. Logan grabbed the handle and heaved it open. A gust of stale, cold air rushed up from below, carrying the scent of damp earth and something older, something unnatural. A metal ladder extended downward, vanishing into the pitch-black void. Eddie peered inside. Nope, I'm not going down first. Logan smirked. Then I guess it's my turn. Without hesitation, he climbed down into the darkness. The descent into shadows. The further Logan descended, the colder the air became. The tunnel walls were smooth, carved with strange, swirling symbols, the same ones that had been on the medallion and parchment. His flashlight flickered. A low humming vibration pulsed through the metal rungs of the ladder, as if something deep below was alive. Eddie followed behind him. Dude, if we get down here and find some horror movie crap, I'm punching you. Logan ignored him. His boots finally touched solid ground. He swung his flashlight around. The tunnel stretched forward, vanishing into inky darkness. The walls, made of ancient stone, were lined with metallic veins that pulsed faintly, almost like living circuits. What the hell is this place? Eddie whispered. Logan shook his head. Not a normal mine, that's for sure. They moved forward cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The deeper they went, the stranger the air became, thick with something electric, something that made Logan's skin tingle. Then, his flashlight beam landed on something impossible, a massive circular door embedded in the rock. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, smooth metal, seamless, ancient, and at its center, a circular indentation, the exact size of the medallion the agents had taken. Eddie let out a sharp breath. Oh, hell no. This is some sci-fi, ancient aliens crap. Logan stepped closer, running his fingers along the smooth metal. It was cold, unnaturally so. And then, the humming grew louder. Eddie tensed. Tell me that's not coming from the door. It was. The ancient mechanism was waking up. Something was waiting on the other side. The warning. Suddenly, a new sound echoed behind them, a noise neither of them had made, a deep clanging, like metal being struck. Eddie spun around. Someone else is down here. Logan's pulse pounded. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming from the ladder. Then, a voice. Cold. Commanding. Unmistakable. You shouldn't have come here, Mr. Carter. Logan's breath hitched. The government agents had followed them. Eddie hissed. Great, just great. A flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing the silver-haired agent from before, flanked by two of his men. The lead agent stepped forward, his face unreadable. You have no idea what you're about to do. Logan squared his shoulders. Then tell me. The agent hesitated. For the first time, Logan saw something unsettling in his expression. Fear. Step away from the door, the agent ordered. Now. Eddie's voice was tight. Or what? The agent raised a hand. And behind him, the tunnel rumbled. Something deep below shifted, sending a tremor through the ground. Logan's skin prickled with pure instinctual dread. Something was waking up. And whatever it was, it had been waiting for a very long time. The vault of shadows. The awakening below. The underground tunnel trembled. Logan Carter could feel it, a pulse in the rock, deep and ancient, like the earth itself had a heartbeat. It wasn't an earthquake. It wasn't the tremor of collapsing stone. It was something alive. The silver-haired agent stood before them, his face carved from stone, but his eyes betrayed him. He was afraid. You need to step away from that door, he said, voice steady but tight. Behind him, two other agents gripped their weapons. They weren't pointing them, yet, but the way their fingers hovered over the triggers, they were ready. Eddie Morales whispered under his breath, Logan, please tell me we are not about to fight the damn government. Logan's mind raced. His gaze flickered between the massive metal door, the circular indentation at its center, and the agents blocking their exit. They didn't have the medallion. The government had taken that. But something told Logan. This door didn't need the medallion to open. It had been waiting. Logan squared his shoulders. "Tell me the truth. What's behind this door?" The agent exhaled slowly, shaking his head. Something that should never be awakened. A deep rumble shuddered through the chamber. Then a sound, low and resonant, rose from the door itself. A hum, vibrating through the air. Eddie stiffened. "Tell me that was the wind." The agent took a sharp step forward, his voice turning deadly serious. "You don't understand what you've uncovered. This site, this entire excavation, was never about the road expansion." Logan's blood ran cold. "You knew," he murmured. "You knew this was down here." The agent's expression darkened. "We didn't just know. We built the seal." Logan's stomach twisted. The door, the ancient vault, the symbols that matched the medallion. It wasn't just buried history. It was a prison. And Logan had just turned the key. The breach. Suddenly, a high-pitched wail erupted from the door. Not a sound, not a voice, a frequency. The tunnel walls vibrated violently, sending dust and loose rock cascading down. The metallic veins along the walls glowed, shifting from dim gold to a burning crimson. The silver-haired agent's face drained of color. "It's waking up." Eddie grabbed Logan's arm. "Dude, I don't know what the hell that means, but we should run." But Logan couldn't move, because the symbols on the door, the ones carved deep into its metallic surface, were changing, rearranging. And then, with a deafening, earth-shaking roar, the door lurched forward. Metal ground against stone, ancient mechanisms locking into place. The heavy vault door shifted, sending shockwaves through the tunnel. Logan's breath hitched. He had seen this kind of thing before. Not in real life, not in the mines, but in nightmares. The door was opening itself, the shadow that was buried. The agents panicked. The silver-haired leader turned, barking into his radio. "The seal has been compromised. I repeat, containment has been breached. We need immediate." Then the lights died. Darkness swallowed the tunnel. The only illumination came from the symbols on the vault, now pulsing in a slow, eerie rhythm. And then, the first whisper. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a voice. It was something inside Logan's mind. A creeping, slithering presence, coiling around his thoughts. "You have freed me." Logan's pulse thundered. The vault door groaned, splitting apart inch by inch. Then the temperature dropped. Not gradually, instantly. The warmth of the underground tunnel was ripped away, replaced by a frigid, suffocating cold. Logan saw his own breath fog in front of him. Eddie staggered back, voice tight with terror. "Oh no. Nope. Nope. Logan, we are leaving." But Logan's feet were rooted in place, because something was moving beyond the vault. Not footsteps, not the shifting of rock. Something vast, something that should not exist. Then, from the widening gap in the door, a shape began to emerge. The entity. It had no definite form, only a shifting mass of pure blackness, as if it were absorbing the very light around it. It moved wrong, not like an animal, not like a human. It pulsed in and out of reality, glitching like a broken image. The two agents behind the silver-haired man opened fire. Gunshots ripped through the tunnel, echoing like thunder. The bullets hit the entity and vanished. The shadow absorbed them like they were nothing. And then it moved, faster than thought. One of the agents screamed, but only for a second, because the moment the shadow touched him, he was gone. No blood, no body, just nothingness. The remaining agent staggered back, his weapon shaking in his grip. The silver-haired leader's expression twisted into pure horror. He turned to Logan, his voice a harsh whisper. run. The desperate escape. The vault exploded open. The shadow surged forward. Logan turned and bolted. Eddie was already ahead of him, cursing under his breath as they sprinted down the tunnel. The silver-haired agent followed, his remaining man right behind him. The tunnel shook violently. The walls cracked. The whispering grew louder, pressing against Logan's skull like 1,000 unseen voices, screaming without sound. "Why you cannot escape?" Logan's lungs burned, his legs screaming for relief, but he kept running. The metal ladder came into view, leading up to the hatch. Eddie scrambled up first, his boots clanging against the metal rungs. Logan followed, heart pounding. The silver-haired agent was right behind him. Below, the tunnel collapsed. The shadow reached for them, twisting, writhing, growing larger as the tunnel caved in on itself. Then, Logan reached the top. He shoved the hatch open. Eddie grabbed his arm, pulling him out. The silver-haired agent emerged seconds later, rolling onto solid ground. And then, the tunnel collapsed completely. A deafening roar of stone and dust filled the air as the entrance sealed itself shut, burying whatever lay below. Silence followed. Then, the wind howled through the excavation site. The storm clouds churned above, but Logan barely noticed, because he knew, in the deepest part of his gut, they hadn't buried it. It had let them go. And that was worse. Much, much worse. The unseen war. The silence that followed. The storm raged above, but Logan Carter barely heard it. The moment they had escaped the mine, everything had gone silent, as if the world itself was waiting. The ground where the hatch had been was now a pile of collapsed rock and dirt, completely sealing the tunnel below. Eddie Morales was panting, hands on his knees, his face pale. He looked at Logan, then at the silver-haired agent, then back at Logan. "Okay," Eddie wheezed. "I need a drink, or a lobotomy." Logan didn't respond, because he could still hear it. A faint, lingering whisper, slithering through the back of his mind. The thing beneath the earth, it wasn't dead. It was waiting. And worse, it knew who they were. The agent's truth. The silver-haired agent stood nearby, his face a mix of exhaustion and something else. Guilt. He pulled off his gloves, his hands shaking slightly. He had been afraid down there. More afraid than Logan had ever seen a government man before. Logan turned to him. "Start talking." The agent's jaw tightened. Eddie scoffed. "Yeah, buddy, you don't get to go all men in black on us after that nightmare. We want answers." The agent exhaled slowly. "You weren't supposed to find this." Logan clenched his fists. "Yeah, well, we did. And now we know that something was locked down there for a reason." The agent hesitated. Then, finally, he spoke. "That wasn't a mine," he said. "Not in the way you think. It was a containment site. One of 6. Logan's stomach twisted. 6. The agent nodded grimly. "There are 6 vaults like this, all built over a century ago, by people who understood that some things should never be uncovered." Eddie crossed his arms. "Yeah, well, you guys clearly suck at keeping them buried." The agent ignored him. "The first vault was built to contain them, but the last vault was built to stop them, if they ever woke up." Logan narrowed his eyes. "The last vault." The agent hesitated again. Then he looked directly at Logan. "You need to understand, we didn't build these vaults." A cold wave of silence swept over them. Eddie let out a dry laugh. "Oh great, aliens, that's what we're dealing with, huh?" The agent shook his head. "Not aliens." He looked back at the collapsed tunnel. "Something worse." Logan frowned. "Then who built them?" The agent was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, he said, "The ones who were here before us. The forgotten civilization." Logan's skin prickled. Eddie scoffed, but there was nervousness behind it. Okay, hold up. Before us. Who's us? The agent exhaled. Humanity isn't the first civilization to rise on this planet. The words hung in the air, heavier than the storm clouds above. Logan felt something shift inside him, something deep and unsettling. Eddie shook his head. Bullshit. The agent glanced at him. Is it? He gestured toward the collapsed vault. You saw that door? The technology. Do you really think humans built that 100 years ago? Logan swallowed hard. He didn't. Because that vault, the symbols, the metal, the way it moved, was nothing like the mining tunnels he had worked in for years. It was alien, but not extraterrestrial. It was something buried in history itself. The agent continued. Long before our recorded history, there was another civilization, one far more advanced than ours. They ruled this planet, harnessing forces we don't even understand. Eddie scoffed, but this time it was forced. And let me guess, they mysteriously vanished. The agent's expression darkened. No, they didn't vanish. They lost. Logan's breath hitched. Eddie frowned. Lost to what? The agent turned to him. To the things we just unleashed. The war that never ended. The storm intensified, thunder cracking overhead, as if something in the sky was listening. Logan's heart pounded. Their civilization, the agent continued, was at war with something they could barely contain. And when they realized they couldn't win, he gestured to the collapsed vault. They built these vaults. Not mines, not buried ruins. Tombs. Eddie ran a hand through his hair, looking as pale as the lightning flashing across the sky. Okay, so let's pretend I believe you. Why bury these things instead of destroying them? The agent shook his head. Because they couldn't be destroyed. Not completely. They are not alive, not in the way we understand. They are something else, a force, a hunger, an intelligence that is not human. It doesn't think like we do. It doesn't die like we do. He pointed at the rubble. And now, one of them is awake. Logan's pulse pounded. He had felt it. That thing down there hadn't been alive, but it had been waiting. And now, it was free. Eddie rubbed his temples. Okay, great. So how do we put the bastard back to sleep? The agent was quiet. Too quiet. Then he looked at Logan. We don't. A cold weight settled in Logan's gut. What do you mean, we don't? The agent hesitated. Then he said something that made Logan's blood run cold. The vault didn't open by accident. Logan stiffened. What? The agent locked eyes with him. It opened because of you. The chosen key. Eddie stepped in. Whoa, hold on. Logan didn't do anything. We just found some weird key in a box, and the government freaked out. That's on you, not us. The agent didn't blink. You don't understand. That key wasn't meant to be found. The vaults don't open unless they recognize the one who turns the lock. Logan felt a chill crawl up his spine. You're saying, it let me in. The agent nodded. It let you in. Because it recognized you. Logan's breath hitched. Eddie laughed. A sharp, nervous sound. Oh, come on. Logan's just a dude. He drives heavy machinery and drinks cheap beer. He's not some chosen one. The agent didn't smile. No, he agreed. But maybe his bloodline is. Logan's stomach twisted. The storm above rumbled again, shaking the very ground beneath them. And in that moment, Logan realized something horrifying. The thing in the vault hadn't been trying to escape. It had been waiting for him to find it. Because it knew him. Or worse, it had been calling him home. The final door. The weight of destiny. The storm howled above, lightning streaking across the sky like cracks in reality itself. Rain lashed the ground in waves, but Logan Carter barely noticed. His world had shrunk to one terrifying fact. The vault didn't open by accident. It opened because of him. He stood frozen, his mind reeling. The silver-haired agent's words echoed in his skull. The vaults don't open unless they recognize the one who turns the lock. The thing had been waiting for him. It knew him. Or worse, it had been calling him. Eddie Morales, his best friend, stood beside him, soaking wet, face pale, fists clenched. He pointed at the agent. Okay, no. Hell no. You're not dumping this apocalypse crap on Logan. He's just a guy. The agent didn't flinch. He's more than that. Eddie scoffed. How? Because he found a rusted key. That's some movie level. Because his family line is tied to the First War. The storm seemed to pause. Logan felt everything drop out from under him. What? His own voice felt far away. The agent turned to him, eyes sharp. The first civilization. The ones who built these vaults. They didn't all die. Logan stared, trying to process the words. There were survivors, the agent continued. People who carried their knowledge forward, who buried their history in whispers and myths, hoping that the vaults would never be opened again. He pointed at Logan. Your bloodline comes from them, the echoes of the past. Logan shook his head, his pulse thundering. That's impossible. My family has always been drawn to places like this. The agent interrupted. Haven't they? Logan's breath hitched. Because it was true. His father had been a miner. His grandfather before him had worked in excavation, and his great-grandfather had died digging up something that had been buried for centuries. He had always felt connected to the land, to the rock, to the soil, to the very earth itself. And now he knew why. Because his family wasn't just uncovering history. They were looking for something they had lost. Eddie exhaled sharply. Okay. So Logan's got some spooky family history. That still doesn't explain why the vault opened. The agent's face hardened. It wasn't just waiting for anyone. His next words sent a chill through Logan's veins. The vault opened because the thing inside recognized you as its jailer. Silence. A deep, terrifying silence. Logan's skin crawled. Jailer? The agent nodded. Your ancestors built these vaults, and their bloodline was tied to them, meant to keep them sealed. That's why the door responded to you. Eddie took a step back, looking at Logan like he was seeing him for the first time. Dude, his voice was barely above a whisper. You're like some kind of cursed guardian. Logan swallowed hard. That word felt right. Because when he had been down there, standing in front of the vault, he had felt something familiar. Like he had been there before. Like something deep inside him remembered. And worst of all, like the thing inside remembered him too. The war has begun. A deep vibration rippled through the ground. Not from the storm. From below. Eddie stiffened. What the hell was that? The agent's radio crackled to life. Command, this is Site 4. Do you copy? We have. Oh God. We have breaches. I repeat, breaches. A new voice cut in, panicked. Site 2 is compromised. The seals are failing. They're waking up. Logan felt his stomach drop. This wasn't just about their vault. The other ones were opening too. The agent clenched his jaw. He already knew. He turned to Logan, his voice sharp. We need to get to the final vault. Now. Logan blinked. The last vault. The one you said could stop this. The agent nodded. It's the only chance we have. Eddie threw his hands in the air. Okay, but what does that even mean? Are we blowing it up? Locking it tighter? What? The agent hesitated. Then he said something that made Logan's blood run cold. We're not locking it. We're going to activate it. Logan's heart pounded. He didn't know what that meant. But something deep inside him did. And it terrified him. The journey to the end. The three of them climbed into a black SUV, speeding through the empty roads as the storm raged around them. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the distant horizon, where fires burned. The vaults were opening. Something had escaped, and the world was not ready. Eddie kept glancing at Logan. Dude, be real with me. Are you about to, ascend to some god-level guardian status? 'Cause if you start glowing, I'm jumping out of this car. Logan forced a smirk. No glowing. Yet. Eddie shook his head. This is insane. First, we dig up a creepy box. Then the government shows up. Then we almost get eaten by a shadow demon. Now we're heading to some final vault that's apparently the kill switch for the apocalypse. He turned to Logan. You should have just been a damn truck driver. Man. Logan chuckled despite himself. But beneath the humor, beneath the adrenaline, he could feel something growing inside him. A pull. Like something ahead was waiting for him, calling him. The last vault. The final door. They reached it at dawn. A massive stone structure buried beneath a forgotten mountain range, hidden for centuries. The door was already glowing. It knew he was coming. Logan stepped forward, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. The agent grabbed his shoulder. Before you go in, you need to understand something. Logan turned to him. The agent's expression was grim. This vault isn't just to stop them. He exhaled. It's to seal their jailer inside too. Logan froze. His entire body went cold. What? The agent's voice was quiet. Whoever locks the last vault stays inside. Silence. Then Eddie shoved past the agent, grabbing Logan by the arm. Nope. No. No way. We're not doing this. Logan stared at the glowing door. He felt it now, that whisper, that pull. This was why the vaults had opened. This was why he had been born. To finish what his ancestors started. Eddie's voice cracked. Logan, please, there's gotta be another way. Logan's throat tightened. He didn't want to do this. But he knew this was the only way. He looked at Eddie, his best friend. Then he stepped forward, toward the final door. The vault sealed shut behind him. The light faded. And Logan Carter, excavator, miner, just a man, became the last guardian of something the world was never meant to remember. But outside, the storm raged on, because the war wasn't over yet.